I was eventually going to make this video talking about the 2025 draft class at some point this season when I had enough to talk about, but we are basically 2 to 3 games through these players' careers, and I think they already achieved more than maybe what the 2024 draft class did last year, because the 2025 draft class might be off to an historic start right now. And if you've been following my content for a while, you knew that I was so high on the 2025 draft class when I made my first video about this draft class right after the night of the 2024 draft, and I'm really excited that we're actually watching these guys so early in their careers look like seasoned veterans already. Starting at the top, Cooper Flagg, who is still just 18 years old. He's going to be 18 till December 21st, still 2 more months. And he's going to have sky high expectations going into the year given what he was at Duke. He was the #1 overall pick for a team that traded their global superstar last year, and he got off to a bad start against the San Antonio Spurs offensively in his first career game as an 18-year-old. I was never going to overreact to that, but he's getting better and better since that game. It was a disappointing game number 2 for the Dallas Mavericks as a whole when they lost to the Washington Wizards, but Flagg looked more efficient around the rim. He knocked down some threes and looked way better as a playmaker. I mean, this defense for Washington is not as good as San Antonio's defense, and then he just went up against a good defense, in my opinion, in the Toronto Raptors and put up 22 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 57% from the field, knocked down 6 free throws and 2 threes. Like I said, as an 18-year-old, it is still mind-blowing to me how comfortable he looks out there, how physical he can be inside against players that are 8 years older than him, 10 years older than him. And I also just love watching Cooper Flagg defensively. I thought he was one of the best help defenders in all of college basketball last year as a 17-year-old to start off that year's season. And I think he's looked the part so far this year. I think he's going to continue to get better and better with his handle as a playmaker and as a shooter as the season goes along. And who knows how the Dallas Mavericks are going to be right now. They're 1-2 to start off the year, but Cooper Flagg has looked the part in my opinion. I think now getting more comfortable with his teammates, with D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Davis out there, giving them really good reads, getting to his spots on the floor, finding Derek Lively in the dunker spot, attacking the opposing team's defense as he should, because he's so physical and shifty for somebody at his size that this game is going to come quicker to Cooper Flagg than it would take for most guys his age or went into these new situations. I think it's going to benefit him playing with veterans like Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, and D'Angelo Russell throughout the season. And it's funny, people were overreacting in a game he did not play good in. Yeah, it was his first career game against the San Antonio Spurs, who have an alien-like player at the center position, but I think Cooper Flagg is off to a great start this year, and I'm really excited to watch him grow. We're definitely going to do like another 2025 draft class check-in, maybe in 20 or 30 games. I just want to talk about this class, and it's headlined by the former Duke Blue Devil. Cooper Flagg had his best game by far against the Toronto Raptors yesterday on Sunday, staying with the #2 overall pick, Dylan Harper. He looked great against the Brooklyn Nets. I'm not sure how much playing time we're going to see from Dylan Harper over the course of the season when De'Aaron Fox eventually comes back. Stephon Castle has looked the part this year as well. But everything that I loved from Dylan Harper in high school and at Rutgers last year has translated perfectly to the NBA level. The burst, the ball handle, the court vision, the efficiency around the rim. He shot over 70% around the rim last year at Rutgers, and that hasn't changed here at the NBA level. He is so physically gifted around the rim and has some of the best touch that I've ever seen from a point guard at his age around the rim in the NBA right now, taking contact, going offhand, and just trying to make something out of nothing as well. I love his creativity so far, and he's really looked the part with Victor Wembanyama and Stephon Castle out there. And his footwork is impeccable. He just looks calm, cool, and collected. And he could decel right now. That somebody looks like a veteran out there. We love watching guys like Andrew Nembhard with their deceleration driving inside, or somebody like Cade Cunningham or Amen Thompson, and Dylan Harper looks like that right now. I also thought he looked good defensively out there for San Antonio. He's not the best defensive rookie in San Antonio right now. That's a player we're going to get to in a little bit. But Harper was fantastic against the Brooklyn Nets. In that game, he put up 20 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. He went 8 of 11 from the field. He knocked down all 4 of his free throws, 2 steals, and 0 turnovers. And he is the youngest guard in NBA history to record a game of 20 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 0 turnovers. And that record was set over a decade ago by Andrew Wiggins in his rookie season. Harper looked great in his home debut. He's going to continue to get better and better throughout the year. This Spurs team is just loaded with young talent. Like, after watching Wemby so far this year, they may have the youngest MVP in NBA history on their roster, given that Wemby would be a couple months younger than Derrick Rose if he won that award this year. Harper's only going to make Wemby better, and this guy could actually be like an all-star next year if he had the proper touches and minutes. Now, on the night of the draft, the 76ers were probably presented the toughest decision to make. It was a clear #1 in Cooper Flagg, a clear #2 in Dylan Harper, but there was a couple guys that can go #3. Ace Bailey, Trey Johnson, Con Knipple, but they decided on on VJ Edgecombe, the explosive guard out of Baylor. And he right now has also looked the part of a number 3 overall pick. He's kind of getting that benefit that Jared McCain had last year and even Maxey in his rookie year, where this team is currently banged up right now with McCain on the shelf and Embiid's on a minute restriction and Paul George is injured. So VJ Edgecombe is getting a great opportunity right away against the Boston Celtics of Jaylen Brown and Derek White, some good perimeter defenders. He had the second most points from a rookie in NBA history in their debut. 34 points, 7 rebounds, knocked down 5 threes, was flying around all over the place defensively, and helped the Celtics win on the road at the TD Garden for their first win of the season. And then he followed up that performance, 15 points, 8 assists. That's what I love to see out of VJ Edgecombe. I thought the passing and the shooting were big swing skills for him because he was the best athlete in the 2025 draft class, in my opinion. And if you go back to the 2023 draft, it had the Thompson twins. Last year, I thought Ron Holland was the most athletic player in the 2024 draft. And Edgecombe has looked the part this year, but he's playing with a great scoring guard right now in the backcourt. Tyrese Maxey has been off to a great start this year. They have a dope nickname of VJ Max. And I think Edgecombe is going to continue to get better over the course of the year when he has Joel Embiid out there for more than Embiid's current minute restriction, who's going to set great screens, who the defense has to focus so much on Embiid or Tyrese Maxey or Quentin Grimes right now, and eventually when Paul George and Jared McCain are healthy, which is going to free up the lane and the paint even more for VJ Edgecombe, because you can have Embiid on the perimeter, and the defense needs to respect Embiid, so you can go 5 out, and Edgecombe downhill is a scary sight. He could finish extremely well around the rim right now, and I loved his defensive intensity. This guy plays with so much energy, and that's what Philadelphia needs. I know their fans may not love Daryl Morey and what he's done in the past, maybe signing Paul George, the Embiid extension, some of the role players he signed over the years, but man, Daryl Morey can draft. He's drafted Tyrese Maxey, he's drafted Jared McCain, and Edgecombe looks like another hit, because Edgecombe's performances so far may top any 2024 draft picks' performances in their careers. One of the safest prospects in the draft went number 4, and that was Con Knipple to the Charlotte Hornets, and I love this for Charlotte. They took a massive risk in the 2024 draft, selecting Tijon Salon in the top 10. You had a ton of variance with Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. I just wanted them to take a safe option in Con Knipple, who doesn't have as high of a ceiling as some of the guys that went after him, but I thought he could be a great connecting piece and somebody you could perfectly plug in between Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. And he's also looked the part as well this year. Con Knipple just dropped 20 points, 6 rebounds, and shot 55% from 3 against the Washington Wizards. He went 3 of 4 in his debut game from 3, 3 of 6 in the loss against Philadelphia from 3. This season, he's 11 of 19 from downtown, and I am not worried about the shot whatsoever because I said he was the best shooter in the 2025 draft class. He moves extremely well without the ball in his hands, and if you watch that Washington Wizards game, him and LaMelo have a great connection already, and he's the perfect player to put around LaMelo Ball. The big thing with Charlotte this year, their young guys need to stay healthy. It's unfortunate Brandon Miller has already been banged up this year, but if LaMelo can stay healthy, I trust Con to stay healthy, and these guys can really build a great two-man connection over the course of this year, over the course of Con's rookie contract, and hopefully longer than that, because Con has some of the highest basketball IQ in the class. He's not the best athlete by any means, so he does have to make that up with his creativity, his movement without the ball in his hands, which I just mentioned was as good as maybe anybody in this draft class. He cuts well, he slashes well, and I like his help defense. He's a great player here in Charlotte, and he's not the only good Charlotte draft pick so far. I think they have a couple hits in the second round that we'll get to later. And Ace Bailey so far this year hasn't really played a ton. He had an illness that kind of sidelined him in his first game, and he's probably struggled the most out of these top 5 picks in a sample size that's not really going to matter too much in the bigger picture. But if you watch what Ace did in Summer League and what he did in the preseason, I think that he could be a great scorer for the Utah Jazz. And I said it on draft night, Utah was the perfect fit for Ace, where he can get his touches, he can go through the ebbs and flows of a rookie season under a great developmental head coach in Will Hardy, in my opinion. He's a 6'10 scorer that can handle the ball extremely well, that has a polished mid-range jumper. I think Will Hardy and the development staff in Utah is going to get the best out of Ace Bailey this year. And once he's fully healthy, feeling his best 100%, Ace Bailey is definitely going to make a run for Rookie of the Year. May not win the award, but I think he's still going to have a productive rookie season and might actually be the franchise player in Utah. The way Lauri Markkanen is playing, they may have to sell high on him at one point this season. Like, I already talked about 5 guys that just excite me so much this year, and there's another maybe 25 guys that excite me because Trey Johnson has looked like a bucket getter out of the gate for the Washington Wizards. I'm going to go more in depth on Keyshawn George when I talk about the 2024 draft class later this week, but Trey Johnson had 16 points, 17 points, and 18 points so far this season. He's shooting 47% from the field, 42% from 3. He hasn't missed a free throw yet. I think his decision making looked a lot better against Dallas and Charlotte than it did in his first game against the Milwaukee Bucks. And something Trey doesn't have that maybe VJ, Harper, and Cooper Flagg definitely have. He doesn't really get to play with a ton of veterans that are going to make the game a little bit easier easier for him. I don't know if CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton are the best veterans to take some of the attention off of Trey Johnson, because honestly, I do think opposing defenses are more worried about Trey Johnson with the ball in his hands than maybe somebody like Chris Middleton this late into his career. Washington has some solid young defenders, but I still think they're a work in progress as a team defense, so Trey Johnson could get exposed a little bit on that end of the season, but they need him to be a bucket getter. Him and Keyshawn George have really good chemistry so far. Trey Johnson was an elite shooter in high school, specifically from the mid-range. He was a great three-point shooter last year at Texas, hitting extremely difficult threes, and he's looked the part this year as well. Washington has to be thrilled with this type of talent falling to them at number 6. I truly just love the way that this top 6 fell. I love Con going to Charlotte, love Trey in Washington, Ace in Utah, VJ in Philly, Harper and Flagg where they are right now. This 2025 draft class, like, I know I could be overreactionary here. I may just be a prisoner of the moment given how good all these guys have gone off to this season, but I think just what we had last year in the 2024 draft being what it is, that's just making me love the 2025 draft class right now. And I had question marks about Jeremiah Fears going into this year. I even said in the offseason that he could benefit from the G League, and he's making me look like a complete idiot right now. The game looks slowed down for Jeremiah Fears. He's one of the quickest players with the ball in his hands right now, and he's using that athleticism, the quickness to get to the rim as a smaller guard. I mean, he is 6'4", but he's just 180 pounds right now, but he looked the part against Memphis, going right up against Ja Morant. I love the intensity that Jeremiah Fears provided, and he also looked great against the San Antonio Spurs, a team where maybe Cooper Flagg didn't look the best in. So I thought it's been an impressive start for Jeremiah Fears so far. I'm not really sure how this season is going to go for the former Oklahoma point guard, just because they're eventually going to get back to DeJounte Murray. If they could stay healthy, you still have to feed Jordan Poole, Trey Murphy, Zion Williamson. But who's to say Jeremiah Fears can't be the 6th or the 7th man this year as a 19-year-old? This guy just turned 19 2 weeks ago. He reclassified to be in the 2025 draft class, and he looks like the franchise point guard in New Orleans for years to come. I still think it could be an up and down rookie year, but Fears looks the part, and as a Pelicans fan, you got to be thrilled by that. I also love Yegor Dorman this year. Yegor looks like the best Brooklyn Nets rookie. For somebody that was a little bit banged up to start off the year, it's still going to be a work in progress with him as a ball handler or as a wing. I think he's still trying to figure out what he's going to be at the NBA level, but between the summer league, preseason, and the start of this season, he's been an elite three-point shooter, which was a big question mark of Yegor coming out of BYU. And I love him being under Jordy Fernandez. It's going to be a weird season for these Nets rookies just because Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas, who are both off to good scoring starts this year, are going to demand so many touches. So all these rookies are kind of in like spot up complementary roles. They're not really going to be able to initiate the offense as much as they would have liked, which would have made more sense because they drafted basically 4 ball handlers. But I've really liked Yegor so far. I don't think he's been the flashiest rookie. The Nets are going to lose a lot of games this season, but I've been very impressed by Yegor's shooting, which I thought was a massive swing skill for him because I thought he was one of the best, maybe the best passer in the 2025 draft. And if he's going to knock down threes at this rate, I think the Nets found a very good player with how the board shaped up. They missed out on maybe one of the top guys, but I think they got a fine player here at number 8. I'm excited for Yegor's rookie season. Con Murray Boyles was banged up to start off the year, so we haven't really seen a lot of him yet, but we know that he's going to be a great defender given what he did in the preseason and last year at South Carolina. Same with Kaman Maluach as well, who showed some flashes in the preseason. I always thought he was going to be more of a developmental guy in Phoenix. He's not going to get the most touches right away. They played Mark Williams, who's currently banged up, and Oso Ighodaro a little bit more so far. And I'm hoping in the second half this year, we just see a ton of Kaman Maluach build up that chemistry and connection with Devin Booker and Jalen Green. But here's one of my favorite rookies so far this year, Cedric Coward for the Memphis Grizzlies. Coward only played 6 games last year at Washington State before suffering a season-ending injury. He was actually going to transfer to Duke, but then he kind of got some love leading up to the draft, and he ended up going in the lottery. The Memphis Grizzlies, who have been a very good drafting team outside of 2022, traded a future first-round pick to move up to get Cedric Coward, who had elite athletic traits, an amazing hand size for the NBA level, and he had maybe a shaky first preseason game. And he had maybe a shaky first preseason game, basically a year after getting injured. And I think if you watched his first preseason game leading up to just his 3rd game in the NBA level, he's actually gotten better and better every single game. And I think Zach Kleiman did it again. He and the whole Grizzlies front office, I think, are one of the best drafting teams in the NBA. Coward has scored 14 points, 16 points, and then exploded for 27 points to start off the year. He was a perfect 6 for 6 against the Indiana Pacers in a 25-point victory. He has been great in transition as well, running the floor. He's got a great connection with Ja Morant right now. And between him and Jalen Wells, like I said, the Grizzlies front office knows what they're doing in terms of drafting. And this is one of the picks they essentially got from the Desmond Bane trade. They didn't own their first round pick this year. They sent it to Washington to get off the Marcus Smart salary, but then they were able to get Orlando's first round pick traded up with Portland to select Cedric Howard, who's not as good as Desmond Bane right now, but for what he's making compared to what Desmond Bane is making, this looks like a great pivot for the Memphis Grizzlies front office, a team that could have 2 first-round picks in this year's draft. Howard is 6'6". He's shooting 72% from 3 to start off the year. I think there's a good chance he's going to shoot over 40% from 3 as a rookie, given if you watch those 6 games of Washington State last year, how much he's improved from Division III basketball to Eastern Washington, then to Washington State. There's a reason why the Duke Blue Devils, who already had a stacked roster, were trying their hardest to get Cedric Howard not to go in the NBA draft and go to Durham, North Carolina. Howard has been one of my favorite rookies so far. The Memphis Grizzlies got a good one. We haven't really seen a ton of Noah Essengay this year, so we'll see what ends up happening with him in Chicago. Derek Queen unfortunately has a ton of pressure on his back right now because the Pelicans, we all know, traded away their 2026 unprotected first-round pick swap between them and the Bucks to move up in the draft to select Derek Queen. And I will say, Derek Queen struggled a ton in Summer League. He was very up and down in preseason. He was banged up in preseason, and so far this year, he's getting into foul trouble as usually young bigs do. But I've actually liked Derek Queen's defensive intensity, and as he furthers along in his NBA career, he's going to get into better and better shape. I've liked his touch around the offensive rim. I still feel like it's a weird fit right now in New Orleans with their front court. Unfortunately, Kevon Looney is hurt right now, so we've seen a little bit of Hunter Dickinson, and they just signed DeAndre Jordan. And like I said, I think it's a little unfair how much pressure Derek Queen, who is a developmental prospect in my opinion, is going to have this year given what they gave up to get him. But I think he's looked good around the rim. He's setting good screens. I like the defense so far. He's still just 20 years old, still trying to figure out what he is as an NBA player, and it may not come for a few years. Is he going to be a 4? Is he going to be a 5? Is he going to take any 3s this year? We have some questions in Derek Queen's game, but he's off to a solid start. Definitely playing a little bit better than I think even the box score would show, and the box score numbers don't look bad. And I don't care how Carter Bryant is offensively this year because he struggled offensively in Summer League, but man, this guy could end up being an all defensive guy on his rookie contract. He's played under 10 minutes in every single one of his games, but I don't care. When you're watching Carter Bryant on defense with his point of attack and his just on-ball defense in general, it's amazing. He was a good defender at Arizona, but I will say, if you asked anybody that was in the weeds of college basketball, he was not a top 5 defender in the country. He was not a top 10 defender in the country. You would definitely say Colin Murray Boyles, Cooper Flagg were the best overall defenders in the 2025 draft class. Carter Bryant was not even close to those guys in the discussion, but if you've watched Carter Bryant's defense so far in his career, the Spurs got an absolute stud here at number 14. And yeah, I'm not sure how much he's going to play this year when De'Aaron Fox is back and Jeremy Sohan is back. I don't care. He's 19 years old, and he's a player that is going to play winning basketball one day when he feels fully comfortable in his shot. When you're playing out there with Wemby, you are going to get so many open looks as well. And just him, Stephon Castle, and Wemby as a defensive trio one day is going to be absolutely filthy. And the Spurs, just man, Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant from this draft class, oh man, they're going to be a scary team, not just this year, but for so many years in the future around Wemby. All right, so I'm not going to talk about every player outside the lottery, especially guys that haven't really played a ton this year. Unfortunately, Thomas Sorber is out for the whole season with the torn ACL. Hansen Yang is going to take a little bit of time to develop in this league and may benefit a little bit of time from the G League, and potentially Johan Berenger as well. We'll see how much Chris Finch trusts him when the Timberwolves season further goes along. They also kind of have some issues in their backcourt right now with Ant banged up. Walter Clayton this year looked the part, an NBA-ready prospect who was just the best player on the best team in the 2025 season, where he was an absolute stud at Florida, and he's had a nice opportunity this year with Isaiah Collier hurt to start off the season. And that's why I was so excited when they moved on from Sexton, who's been good this year for Charlotte, Jordan Clarkson, and John Collins, just to see these young guys get the opportunities they have right now. Because Clayton's averaging 10 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds through his first 2 games. He looks comfortable in his shot. He's getting downhill. And the Utah Jazz may not win a lot of games this year, but I'm going to try to watch almost every single Jazz game this season, especially when he's out there and Ace Bailey as well. I'll get into their lottery pick in the 2024 draft in that video, but you got to be really excited about being a Utah Jazz fan right now. I feel like we're kind of reaching the end of the Washington Wizards and the Utah Jazz being at the bottom of their respective conferences right now. I think both those teams just want one more good pick in the 2026 draft, and then both of them are going to go guns blazing in the 2027 season with all the young talent they have on their rosters. I think Nolan Traore in Brooklyn may benefit a little bit of time from the G League as well. Kasperi Shakuchonis has been banged up to start off the year. Will Riley, I think, has shown some flashes on each end. Another guy that could also benefit from the G League, which is perfectly fine. Reed Shepherd was in the G League last year. There is no shame in playing in the G League and refining your skills, figuring out what works at the NBA level, and getting up to game speed for a game that can be so different from what you did in college, given what conference you were in. I think Asa Newell has looked like a really solid player for the Atlanta Hawks so far, who are off to a weird start right now, but Newell's actually looked really good as a 3-point shooter, which I thought was a big swing skill for him coming out of Montverde and coming out of Georgia last year, because he didn't play against Toronto. He barely played against the Orlando Magic, but we got good runtime with him against the OKC Thunder, and Quinn Snyder may have no choice but to play Asa Newell if he's going to look this good as a rebounder, as a shooter, and having all right touch around the rim. I'm not saying Asa Newell is going to play 25 minutes a game for the Atlanta Hawks if they are at full strength, but somebody that can give you good 8 to 12 minutes a night on your second unit, while also getting a potential lottery pick in the 2025 draft. Because if you look at the top of the 2026 draft, which I'm going to make a whole video on, I actually may drop my top 30 prospect ranking next week. And if the Pelicans are going to be bad and the Hawks have a chance at getting a Darren Peterson, to AJ DeBenta, or a Cameron Boozer, the Hawks are just going to be loaded with young talent. I'm so upset that Nick Clifford got hurt, because between Summer League, preseason, and even in his first game before he got hurt, he just looks so comfortable with the ball in his hands. I have my own gripes about the Sacramento Kings right now, but I thought Clifford went a little bit too late in the 2025 draft. Jace Richardson looks so good in Summer League and preseason as well. I'm not sure how much playing time he's going to get for the Orlando Magic this year. They're also off to a weird start, but I think he's NBA ready. The Brooklyn Nets, who took Ben Soroff at 26, have really trusted him this year as a ball handler. He's been starting games for Brooklyn, and I also think he could benefit from the G League at times this year. And just, I feel like the first half Nets are going to look so different from the second half Nets, especially if they move off of a Cam Thomas or a Nick Claxton or a Terrence Mann. Hey, the way Michael Porter Jr. is shooting the ball, maybe somebody trades for him. We haven't really seen a ton of Danny Wolf this year, Liam McNeely, or Yannick Koenig-Niederhauser. And Hugo Gonzalez is definitely going to have some ups and downs in his rookie year, but I like his defensive intensity, and I'm glad he's in Boston, where that team may not win a ton of games this year, but I think Joe Mazzulla is going to be a great coach for Hugo Gonzalez moving forward, and playing behind Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, some of the best wings in the early part of his careers, which can really go a long way. All right, so I'm not going to talk about every second round pick, just guys that have caught my eye so far this season. And I want to talk about the two Charlotte Hornets, because they haven't really played Liam McNeely a lot. I think that's something to watch unfold this year. But with Brandon Miller out, Sion James, who was selected 33rd overall out of Duke, has looked like the role player that I thought he was going to be coming out of the 2025 draft. I loved watching Sion James at Tulane, and he was like a perfect role player in Duke, which was going to be his role at the NBA level. Sometimes players that are prospects that are pretty much stars in college struggle to find that new role at the NBA level, where you're not going to be the guy anymore. Sion James was not the guy at Duke, so he knows his role right now in Charlotte. He's playing great defense. The three-point shots are falling. He's such a physical bruiser as well for somebody that's only 6'5". I think this is going to be a great pickup for the Charlotte Hornets going forward, and I'm just really excited to watch the Hornets this year. They were always going to be a top-tier league pass team for me because of what they could do offensively, but them selecting Sion James at 33 and Ryan Kalkbrenner at 34 look like hits right now. I don't think Ryan Kalkbrenner is ever going to be a top-tier starting center in the NBA, but he's off to a great start this year, going up against some physical centers in Joel Embiid and Nick Claxton, Day'Ron Sharpe, or even the number 2 overall pick last year in Alex Sarr. I think Kalkbrenner has held his own. He's like a more traditional big man defender. You don't want him out there on the perimeter. I trust Moussa Diabate a little bit more, given Diabate's athleticism, but Kalkbrenner looks like a really solid pick for the Charlotte Hornets right now. Or what about Brooks Barnhizer getting meaningful minutes for the OKC Thunder, a team that won 68 games last year? They're extremely banged up right now. J-Dub hasn't played yet. Alex Caruso's banged up. Isaiah Joe's banged up. Kaysen Wallace missed the game. And Brooks Barnhizer has stepped up on the defensive end, in my opinion. I think he's an extremely polished rebounder, something he was at Northwestern last year. He hasn't really done much offensively. But if you're watching Thunder basketball, you're seeing AJ Mitchell step up. You're seeing minutes from Chris Youngblood, Braden Carlson, Usman Jang. And I think Brooks Barnhizer is going to be a really good role player in OKC. With all the second apron stuff looming for them, they need these guys to hit in the second round that are making basically nothing against their cap space. And I think Barnhizer could be a guy for them when they have to make some big decisions eventually. A couple more guys in the second round that I really like. Javon Small has hit some big time shots already. For you guessed it, the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that just might end up being better at drafting than most teams in the NBA. They're up there with the OKC Thunder, in my opinion, the 2 best drafting teams in the NBA. Javon Small was a great 3-point shooter at West Virginia last year, or even the year before that at Oklahoma State, and he's gonna have to step up way more than he probably initially thought when he was drafted by Memphis, given the injuries to Scottie Pippen Jr. and Ty Jerome. I also didn't think Javon Small was like a true initiating point guard at West Virginia, but he's made some really nice reads this year. He's got a game already with 8 assists and 6 assists. I think Tyrese Proctor, who hasn't shot the ball well to start off the year, is actually going to be a big key for Cleveland's future. Like OKC, Cleveland has some second apron issues right now, and they will in the long term. And I think Proctor is NBA ready like he was at Duke last year. Similar to Sion James, was kind of a role player last year for the Blue Devils with all their stacked freshman talent. And maybe when Garland comes back, Proctor is not going to be in the rotation, but he's going to be ready if an injury happens. And the last guy I really enjoyed watching in the second round, Will Richard of the Golden State Warriors. This man is a part of a team that basically has finals or bust mentality, given how old their roster is at the moment. And Richard is just going to make winning plays like he did last year for the Florida Gators. If you remember in that national championship game against Houston and you watch that first half, nobody could knock down a three. Everybody looked flustered, nervous. I mean, it is the biggest game of the season, and nobody could knock down a three. Walter Clayton couldn't knock down a three. Miles Uzan could have knocked down a three. LJ Cryer could have knocked down a three. But you know who could? Will Richard. Florida won that game 65-63, and he knocked down 4 out of their 6 threes in that game. And so far this year for the Warriors, he's flying around defensively. He's looked the part in transition as well. And given how old this Warriors roster is, he may have to play a decent amount this year. You probably don't expect that much out of the 56th overall pick. But I think Mike Dunleavy did a great job evaluating Richard's talent and where he could fit on this team. I'm glad he made the active roster. And I even like some of the guys that went undrafted as well that are already making immediate impacts for players that weren't even drafted in general. Dylan Cardwell, I think, has been one of the best Sacramento Kings defenders so far. I mean, you look at their front court defensively. It's Domantas Sabonis, Dario Saric, Drew Eubanks, none of those guys are known for their defense, but Cardwell has made some really nice defensive plays, and it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up as a better NBA player than his Auburn teammate in the front court last year in Janai Broome. Chris Youngblood, Hunter Dickinson, and Ryan Nembhard have also played key minutes this year for guys that didn't even get their name called on the 2025 draft night. So I just kind of wanted to talk about the draft class in general. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Like I said, we'll do like another check-in, maybe 20 or 30 games into their first year, and you can let me know if I'm being maybe too positive about this draft class. Maybe it's because last year's draft class wasn't as talented at the top. Like I said, I will be dropping my 2026 first big board, so make sure you're subscribed when that comes out. There's a link to my Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok in the description below. Thank you guys all for watching, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.